Hello, my adoptive families. How are you guys doing today? Today, I want to talk to you about nature versus nurture. I created a Facebook post yesterday, and so many dynamic opinions and discussions were started over the power of nature versus nurture and the influence that it has over our adopted children. So I wanted to talk to you today, bring up some of the things that people had said, address them directly, and of course, give you my information about which is the most powerful influence, nature versus nurture. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brooke Fremouw. I am an adoptive mom to 11 beautiful children, and I am a certified trauma support specialist. I help parents exchange the chaos in their hearts and in their homes for peace. So if that sounds like something that you've been needing in your house, there's going to be a link down in the comments, and you can just click on that link for a 45-minute strategy call to help you tame that chaos that's in your heart and in your homes. Okay? With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the topic for today. Nature versus nurture. First of all, I want to go through some of the comments that I received on my post yesterday and address them kind of one by one. I think that you're going to feel enlightened by some of the things that they say, challenged, and perhaps slightly entertained as well. So let's take a look at those things. One of our moms said, a true story. Twin boys were raised by an alcoholic father. One boy grew up to be an alcoholic. The other boy grew up and never touched a drop of alcohol. When the alcoholic son was asked, why did you grow up and become an alcoholic? That boy said, because my father is an alcoholic. When the other boy was questioned, why have you never touched alcohol? He said, because my father is an alcoholic. Wow, what a powerful story, right? They grew up in the same exact environment, but the way in which they interpreted their environment was completely polar opposite from one another. So by sharing this parent shared this, and what their intention was to say biology dictated, right, the way in which they interpreted their environment. So, interesting point, definitely something worth considering. There are a whole lot of people that said it's both, right? So a lot of people said nature and nurture work hand in hand for an outcome, which I think we would all agree is true, but that's not what we're asking. Which one is the most powerful influencer, right? Somebody said I would say both. There are certain things that will not change no matter how amazing the nurture is. If you're an adoptive mom, I think you already know this to be true. There are certain physical attributes that certainly we can't change, right? Your child's skin color, your child's eye color, the size that your child is going to grow to under optimal nutrition, right? Those things we cannot change. And yet, I'll wait. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we'll wait. Hold that thought, okay? Because we can actually change the way that our DNA is interpreted, the way that it comes out through our hearts and our behaviors. And a lot of people don't know that. So that's a really fascinating thing that we'll get to. Okay, here's a mom said this, both. And I believe it is impossible to measure the definite impact or the definitive impact of either. And also the influence that trauma has on each individual situation, and a person is uniquely different. Development is different, interventions are different, receptiveness of those interventions are also very different. So I love this. This person is saying, listen, we can debate this all day long, but the reality is if my child and your child went through the exact same birth family to adoptive family situation, came into my home, exactly the same environment, it was one versus the other, one child would respond differently than the other child just because innately we interpret things differently, and our biology has us physiologically interpret our environments different. If you are trauma-informed, you know this to be true. And I know that was a mouthful, so forgive me for that. But you know that to be absolutely true. So when we take the measures looking for the answer for this, we're having to look over a big long-term picture in order to get the answer that we're looking for, as opposed to any individual child and their circumstances, because this mom is absolutely right. We all take the experiences that are around us and interpret them in different ways. Okay. This mom says, well, their environment can change their biology, change their brain, turn on and off genes. So I would say nurture is more influential. This is what I was alluding to before. There is an article, I'll actually post the link for you here as well. There's an article that was done that basically says, though our DNA strand will not change based off of our environment, the way that our body receives that DNA coding can actually change. Mind blown, right? Am I right? Isn't that the craziest thing to think, that how we interpret our DNA, the energy that we bring to the table, actually can change? So your environment is a huge, huge factor as to how it is that you are going to grow and evolve and what adult you're going to be. Moms, that's an encouragement to you, is it not? No matter what your child has been through, your love is powerful and meaningful. We'll get back to that as well. Okay. Depends on the amount of trauma. One mom commented that. Boy, oh boy, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And there's a lot of science that shows children that were adopted, placed for adoption early on, they have early childhood trauma from their primal wound, meaning that they lost the connection between their birth mom and themselves at a very early age. But the trauma stops, right? There's that in utero trauma, perhaps. There's that trauma break. And from there, hopefully, they're put into a loving, nurturing home. And then the success rate is much, much higher for lack of mental health issues, lack of physical ailments, early childhood development issues, developmental delays and learning disorders, all of those kinds of things. So the more trauma a child is exposed to, the greater obstacles the environment has to overcome. Completely agree with that. Okay, this person says nurture, environment. All things are possible when you are in a loving, nurturing environment, no matter where you come from or what your past was. I wanted to end on that because that's what I would have said 16 years ago. 16 years ago, I would have said, love never fails, because I believe love never fails. Scripture says love never fails, and the love of God does heal and never fails. However, it was prideful for me to think as a mom that I could bring in a teenager that was 11 years old and simply love the wounds out of her, that I could break her for goodness, that I could love her, literally love the hell, right? All that bad, all that hurt, all that pain, all of her broken patterns of thinking, all of her physiological responses, that I could literally love them out of her. It was naive and it was prideful. And so that's the one I wanted to end on, because now I want to talk to you about how I see nature versus nurture. For me, I thought that love and safety could heal any pains from the past. The two have to go hand in hand. Safety, from a trauma-informed perspective, is not what you and I think safety is. Safety is not what OLCR, the people who come and license our homes for adoption, is not what they say safety is. You see, safety is in the eye of the child. It is not in the eye of the parent. My daughter, when she came, safety was the blinds needed to be closed at night and all the doors needed to be locked. That's what safety was. Nobody regulates that. And yet that equaled safety for her because of her background. I have another child, safety meant lights on in the bedroom at night, right? I have another child yet that sees fire as not safe, right? And so we have to actually be able to look into the eyes of our children and look into their history and look into their responses to our environment, and then adapt our environment to equal safety for them. Because if our environment is not safe, how is it that they can regulate themselves and actually start to heal? So that's the first thing I'd say. Environment is a powerful influencer over creating safety. Another factor of safety is how safe do we engage with our children? Do we engage with our children the same way we would a biological child? Do we have the same hot temper? Because I guarantee you that if we have that same hot temper that their biological family turned into an abusive situation, it immediately makes them feel unsafe. And again, how can a child ever heal if they don't feel safe, right? So safety and love. You can love a child all day long, but are they willing to receive the love that you have? Or does love equal pain? So many of our kids, love equaled pain, didn't it? So they don't really want anything to do with love. And they build up a really high brick wall against a willingness to receive that love. You can't make a child receive your love. You can't make a child pull down their brick wall. And certainly there's a lot of things that we can do that encourage that. There's actually a class that I teach called Brick Walls and Black Holes on my website that talks specifically about techniques for breaking down those brick walls. But the reality is that we have to be patient and gentle and loving. We have to be willing to stand in a battlefield and really take on things that we maybe never intended to take on. And by doing so, and by showing ourselves willing to stand in the gap and continue to love despite, they learn to trust that love doesn't mean rejection, that love doesn't mean abuse, that love can be safe and actually healing. Mamas, I am telling you, it is not an easy journey, right? The journey of healing through adoption, healing through safety and love, it is an uphill battle. And if you would have asked me just a short 2 or 3 years ago, what's more powerful, nature versus nurture? I would have said nature 100-fold. But today I stand here saying no, it is nurture. Because the reality is the more that I haven't given up, the more that I've applied trauma-informed care, which I did not know existed for literally the first 10 years of me parenting my adopted kiddos, the more I've done those things, the more I've seen my children willing to receive the love and allow that love to change who they are and how they engage this world. So let that be an encouragement to you. One last footnote is that moms, you don't have to be on your A game all the time. Don't let this be a source of pressure for you. Oh my word, I have to heal my child by being the perfect, loving, safe mother. No, that doesn't exist. And certainly in a battlefield as big as yours and mine, it's an unrealistic expectation. Show up with your A game 60% of the time. There's a lot of science that says 60% of the time is enough to put that change in your child's heart. Can you do 60%? Have grace for yourself for that other 40, okay? All right, so nature versus nurture. Let's recap real quickly. Nature versus nurture, which is more powerful? The reality is both are huge influencers over our children. But at the end of the day, we can't control nature. We can control nurture. And there is a lot of healing that can take place through the power of a loving, safe, nurturing environment. Okay. If you want to apply some of this to your own family situation, check out the comment section below. I'm going to have that link for you so that you can book that 45-minute strategy call, and we can really talk about what it looks like to use your home environment in order to heal the hurts of your child. Thanks so much for checking out this video today. Please like it,